Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. And you'll never miss a story again. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who told a story like this. I always believed in keeping my personal life private, letting time take care of wounds, and letting silence be my answer to betrayal. But some truths need air, not for revenge, not for sympathy, but because sometimes the only way to really move on is to tell the story exactly as it happened. No theatrics, no sugarcoating, just the quiet unraveling of something I once believed was love. My name is Ryan Cooper. I'm 31. 6 days before my wedding, I came home to a message that changed everything. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I'd left work early to pick up the final guest list we'd printed at the shop near downtown. Our wedding was set to be a small but elegant event. Close friends, family, nothing extravagant, just genuine. Simple. Real. At least that's what I thought we were building. As I stepped into our apartment, I noticed a strange stillness. I called her name, Emily, but no answer. The living room was clean, a candle still burning faintly on the coffee table. I smiled at the thought that she might be in the bath. She always loved a good soak after meetings with the planner. Then I saw her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. I never believed in snooping. Trust was the cornerstone of everything for me. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the way the screen lit up with a name I'd never seen before. Or maybe it was just that gut feeling you get when something doesn't feel right. The name read Aiden Hotel. I don't know why, but my heart stopped. I told myself it was probably just a friend from her old job. Maybe someone helping with the venue. But when the phone buzzed again, I tapped the screen. One message, then another, then a photo. It was her, in a hotel mirror. Wearing the necklace I gave her on our first anniversary, holding the phone in one hand, champagne in the other. A man's hand on her waist, his face barely visible in the reflection. I stared at it for what felt like hours, the kind of stare where time folds in on itself. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone across the room. I just stood there, feeling the quiet hum of realization settle into my bones. She came home 2 hours later, soaked from the rain. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, babe, you're home early," she said, casually tossing her coat onto the hook. I nodded, swallowing the weight in my throat. "Yeah, just picked up the guest list." She moved toward me, kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I'm going to my brother's for a few days. Work stuff came up." Her eyes flickered, just for a moment, a crack in her otherwise polished performance. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Everything's fine," I said with a smile, so controlled it felt like it didn't belong to me. And just like that, I packed a small bag, got into my car, and left. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg for answers or demand apologies. I drove to my brother Matt's place across town, told him I needed to crash for a while, and then I started to unravel the truth. Not for her, not even for closure, but for me. The next morning, I woke up before the sun and began pulling threads. Emily and I had been together for 4 years. We met at a charity event, both volunteering, both seemingly grounded, both sharing that easy kind of laughter that people envy. Or so I thought. In hindsight, it was all curated. Her stories, her timing, her charm. I mistook the performance for depth. I called an old friend of hers I'd met a couple of times, Laura, who'd always seemed just a little too reserved around us. "Ryan," she said, clearly surprised, "everything okay?" "Can I ask you something off the record?" I said, just between us. There was a long pause. "Is it about Emily?" "Yeah," another pause. Then a quiet sigh. "I didn't want to get involved, but I always wondered when you'd start asking questions." That sentence confirmed everything. Turns out, Aiden wasn't new. He was an old flame. Someone from before me. They reconnected a few months ago at a conference she claimed was for work. The affair didn't just start. It had been simmering, carefully hidden under the layers of wedding plans, registry items, and bridal showers. She had convinced everyone, even herself, that she could build a future on a lie. But you can't fake love, not really. Over the next few days, I did what I do best. I listened, observed, and documented. I reached out to our wedding vendors and quietly canceled my parts, photographers, DJ, caterer. I told them Emily would handle the rest. Most of them had already received her emails with changes I never approved. She was shifting the entire wedding aesthetic into something unrecognizable. More expensive, more flashy, less us, more whatever image she was trying to sell. My bank statements showed a few transfers I didn't authorize. Small at first, but enough to make me look deeper. She had opened a joint credit card in our names without telling me. The balance almost maxed. This wasn't just betrayal of the heart. This was a calculated rewriting of our life. And I was the quiet character in her story, there to support the illusion until she didn't need me anymore. But I didn't blow it up. I didn't storm into the apartment with evidence. Instead, I started moving my money into a separate account, froze the joint one, pulled my name from any shared documents. I even visited the venue and politely informed them that I would not be attending, and they should expect legal notice if any charges attempted to hit my account. All of this I did without a word to Emily. On the 5th day, I went back to the apartment once she was at work. I packed the rest of my things, left my key on the counter, and I wrote her a letter, not to plead, not to rage, but to state the truth in a way only silence can deliver. Emily, there's nothing left to explain. I saw the messages, I saw the photo, and I saw the way you smiled at me afterward like none of it existed. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed the idea of us. The quiet, honest life we said we wanted. I won't confront you. I won't play the villain in a story you created. I'll just say this. The truth always finds its way to the surface. And when it does, it doesn't shout. It whispers. And those whispers tear down even the loudest lies. I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. Ryan. And then I left. No final word, no dramatic exit. Just silence. The kind that says everything. I stayed with Matt for a couple more weeks, during which time Emily tried calling me, texting, even emailing. She alternated between concern, confusion, and then eventually anger. Ryan, what are you doing? The wedding is in 2 days. I didn't answer. She even showed up at Matt's once, but I wasn't home. He told her I'd moved on, that I wasn't interested in playing her games, and I wasn't. Because by then, I had everything I needed. Aiden wasn't just an old flame. He was married. And his wife? Well, she was about to get the same truth I'd just lived through. I didn't reach out to her to hurt Emily. I did it because no one deserves to live inside a lie, especially not someone who's been told it's love. But that's where the story truly began to shift. Because what started as heartbreak turned into something else entirely. Clarity, resolve, and a quiet fire I didn't know I had. And while Emily thought I'd just disappeared, the truth was I was only getting started. Some people think silence is weakness, that when you don't react, you're either scared or unsure. But the truth is, silence is where strategy lives. It's the quiet before the storm, not of rage or revenge, but of reality rebalancing itself. In the days after I walked away from Emily, my emotions came in waves. Some mornings I woke up feeling weightless, free of the deceit I hadn't realized I'd been living under. Other times, I'd sit alone in my car outside a coffee shop and feel the sharp sting of betrayal hit me all over again. Like a slow-acting poison, it took time to work its way through me. But every time I thought about calling her, giving in to the chaos of unfinished conversations, I reminded myself of the truth. I didn't walk away because I was afraid. I walked away because she didn't deserve my voice anymore. Instead, I focused on something far more powerful. Truth. Not twisted, not emotional. Just truth. Laid bare. And that's what led me to Vanessa. Vanessa was Aiden's wife. I had found her name through an old wedding registry, and it didn't take long to trace her to a small law firm downtown. Her online profile described her as a partner there. Sharp, director, not someone who would take kindly to betrayal. I debated for days whether to reach out. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't trying to destroy Emily's life, but something deeper told me Vanessa deserved to know, just like I had. So I sent her a short message, respectful, calm. Hi, Vanessa. I hope this doesn't come off as inappropriate. My name is Ryan Cooper. I believe you and I may be caught in the same storm. I have information I think you deserve to see. If you're open to talking, I'll meet you wherever you feel comfortable. I didn't expect her to respond, but she did, within hours. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., rooftop cafe at Leighton Tower. No signature, just a meeting time. The next morning, I arrived 10 minutes early. The city was already humming below us, unaware of the quiet reckoning about to unfold over coffee and quiet truths. She arrived exactly at 10 o'clock. Tall, composed, tailored blazer, sharp eyes. She looked like the kind of woman who had weathered storms before. "You're Ryan?" she asked. I nodded and stood to greet her. "I have 20 minutes. Let's not waste time." I opened my phone and slid it across the table. Everything I know, messages, photos, timeline. I'm not here for anything other than the truth. What you do with it is your choice. She scrolled slowly, saying nothing. Her face barely moved. No tears, no outbursts, just silence. Controlled, measured. After a few minutes, she looked up. "Well," she said quietly, "this explains a lot." It turns out Vanessa had her suspicions for months. Aiden had become distant, erratic. Their shared calendar was suddenly full of unexplained work trips, but she hadn't wanted to believe it, because belief would have meant facing a truth that would tear her carefully constructed world apart. We talked for nearly an hour after that, not about plans, not about revenge, just two strangers, sitting with the same bruise on their hearts, realizing they weren't crazy for trusting people who weren't worth it. At the end, she said something I'll never forget. "Thank you, Ryan. You're the first person in all of this who didn't lie to me." That's when I realized how rare the truth had become in my life, how surrounded I had been by masks and performance, and how good it felt, finally, to stand outside of it all. Meanwhile, back in Emily's world, the cracks began to show. I didn't respond to her messages, but I watched from a distance. Not obsessively, just enough to understand what she was trying to build. She posted smiling photos, updates about the postponed wedding. She even claimed I had left because of work stress. It was astonishing how quickly she rewrote the story. But lies are fragile things. They don't collapse in explosions. They crumble in quiet, unnoticed moments. I knew her parents had no idea what happened. They adored me. Her father once told me I was the kind of man he'd hoped would come into his daughter's life. Calm, steady, loyal. I didn't reach out to him, but he did to me. 2 weeks after what should have been our wedding day, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "Ryan, it's Mark, Emily's father. I don't want to intrude, but I feel like I'm missing something. You don't owe me anything, but if you're okay talking, I'd appreciate it." I sat with that message for a while. Then I called him back. We met at a quiet diner on the edge of town. He looked tired, confused. When I told him everything, calmly, without emotion, he didn't speak for a long time. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "Not just for what she did, but for not seeing it. You've always been good to her. Too good, maybe." He offered a kind smile, the kind that holds apology and gratitude in the same breath. "I hope you find someone who deserves you, Ryan. Truly." That conversation stayed with me. It reminded me that not all relationships end in chaos. Some just end. And sometimes, the dignity with which you walk away becomes the story people remember most. In the weeks that followed, Emily's picture-perfect narrative started to blur. Friends we shared began asking quiet questions. Some reached out to me, curious, concerned. I didn't offer details. I just said, "We weren't meant to be." That was enough. People can feel the truth when it's spoken gently. And Emily, she kept reaching out. First with anger, then guilt, then apologies. "Can we talk? I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." But by then, I wasn't holding on to anger. I was holding on to peace. And peace doesn't answer when chaos calls. Instead of replying, I went back to doing something I hadn't done in a long time: living. I reconnected with old friends. I started running again. I even picked up my camera, a hobby I'd let go of when planning the wedding consumed all our weekends. I captured sunrises, old buildings, strangers laughing in parks. It reminded me that life keeps moving, even when yours feels stuck. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure from her. I'd already found it in every quiet decision I made not to return, not to explain myself, not to let her rewrite my truth. But the final chapter wasn't written yet. Because one day, weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, just my name and familiar cursive. It was from Emily. I sat on my porch for a long time before opening it. Part of me didn't want to, but curiosity has a strange way of pulling you in. Inside was a short note, just a few sentences. "Ryan, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. I just want you to know I see it now. Everything you were, everything I threw away. I thought I was chasing freedom, but all I found was a mirror, and I don't like what's looking back. I hope you're happy. I really do. Emily." I folded the note and placed it in a drawer, not as a keepsake, just as a reminder that even those who betray us can find their truth eventually. But by then, I was already gone, not just from her life, but from the man I used to be. Because this wasn't a story about heartbreak anymore. It was a story about transformation, and the final act was still to come. They say time heals all wounds. I don't know if that's entirely true. Some wounds don't close the way we expect. They don't vanish. They become part of us, like old tree rings, telling a story of storms survived. But healing, that's something different. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without bleeding. And I had finally reached that place. Months passed. The season changed. Life didn't just return to normal. It grew into something quieter, stronger, and more honest. I moved out of Matt's place and rented a small loft across the river. It wasn't much, but it had a view of the water and just enough space for my books, my camera gear, and my peace of mind. I started doing freelance photography again. Not for clients, just for me. Cityscapes, strangers, stillness. That was the first time in years I started to feel like myself again. Not someone wrapped in a role someone else had cast me in. I never responded to Emily's letter. I didn't need to. Her words were a whisper from a past that no longer held power over me. What I needed now was to live, not as someone recovering from betrayal, but as someone who had grown because of it. But closure has a strange way of circling back, sometimes when you least expect it. I ran into her by accident. It was a chilly afternoon in October. I was at a local art fair, camera slung over my shoulder, sipping coffee and browsing handmade ceramics. That's when I saw her, standing by a booth alone. No ring, no smile. For a moment, our eyes met. Her expression was unreadable. Not sadness, not anger, just recognition. Like two people who once shared a language, but no longer remembered how to speak it. She didn't come over. Neither did I. And that was the moment I knew I was free. Still, something inside me shifted after that. Not in a painful way, but in a reflective one. I began to understand just how much the experience had shaped me. Not into someone bitter, but someone sharper, more deliberate. It made me reevaluate everything: how I trusted, how I gave, how I let people into my life. And perhaps that's the real revenge in all of this. Not screaming, not exposing, not retaliating, but becoming untouchable in your peace. Meanwhile, through mutual connections, I learned what had become of Emily. Her relationship with Aiden had unraveled quickly. Vanessa had filed for divorce within weeks of our meeting. Quietly, cleanly, with the precision only someone truly done can deliver. From what I heard, Aiden had moved to cities not long after, and Emily was left picking up the pieces of something she'd tried to build on someone else's pain. People started distancing themselves from her. Not because I had said a word I never did, but because truth doesn't need a messenger, it just needs time. Eventually, those who had once bought into her version of the story began to ask the right questions. And silence, my greatest ally, did the rest. What struck me most was how unnecessary drama had become in my life. I didn't have the urge to tell anyone how wronged I was. I didn't need the world to know what I had survived. I just needed to live well. That was enough. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. I received an email from a local gallery. They had come across my photography through a mutual connection and wanted to showcase some of my cityscape series in an upcoming exhibit. It was a small opportunity, but for me, it was everything. Opening night was quiet, but meaningful. People walked through the space, stopping at the framed moments I'd captured. A man reading alone on a park bench, rain on window glass, children chasing birds by the river. Each photo was a reflection of stillness, of rebuilding. Near the end of the evening, I saw a woman standing by one of my favorite pieces, a photo of the sun breaking through old buildings downtown. Her posture, her stillness, reminded me of myself from months ago. She turned and smiled. "This one feels like hope," she said softly. I nodded. "It is." Her name was Lily. She was a writer, funny, thoughtful, unafraid of silence. We spoke for a while, then a little longer, and before I knew it, hours had passed. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even looking for connection. But sometimes, when you've cleared away the wreckage, life makes room for something real. Lily and I took things slow. There was no performance, no pretending, just honesty from day one. I told her everything about Emily, the almost wedding, the silence I used to rebuild. She didn't flinch, she just listened, then said something that stuck with me. "You didn't lose anything. You escaped." And she was right. It wasn't heartbreak. It was release. With Lily, I learned that real love doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need rescuing or rescuers. It just is. Quiet and solid and kind. But even as I moved forward, I never forgot what happened. Not because I was holding on, but because that chapter taught me who I was when everything fell apart. It showed me that walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the greatest show of strength. Because anyone can scream, anyone can rage. But it takes a different kind of courage to look betrayal in the face, nod once, and walk into your future without it. Emily once told me that I was too calm for my own good, that I needed more passion, more fire. But what she never understood was this. My calm wasn't emptiness, it was depth. And when the storm came, it wasn't noise that saved me. It was knowing who I was when everything else cracked. Today, I live a different life. Not louder, not grander, just real. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't always get justice. You don't always get apologies. But if you stay silent long enough, and you stand in truth long enough, the lies collapse under their own weight. And the best revenge is peace. Not the kind that's loud or celebrated, but the kind that lets you sleep deeply, love gently, and walk away from everything that once tried to break you without ever looking back.